Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Let's do this. I'll start off with one. Not from the West. Be 19 at home. I fell asleep, bed right against the wall. I enjoy facing the wall when sleeping, hence facing the wall, fast asleep. My room door is unlocked. I wake up to the sound of the door opening, around 6 p.m. approximately. I know Mom is home, but she hardly ever comes into the room, probably dropping clothes off, the usual. She does not walk back out. Instead, she sits at the edge of the bed. Now I'm annoyed. Want to talk about problems? Not the time. I turn around to tell her I'm not in the mood. No one is on the bed. The room is empty. The door is ajar. Red alert. I get off the bed. I walk out of the room and shout, "Mom!" No sound. I walk through the whole way to the kitchen at the back of the house. "Mom?" No response. I walk out the back door through the kitchen. I see Mom talking to the neighbor. Partially guilty, I say, "Mom, why'd you come into the room?" Weird expression. She says, "Anons, son. I've been here for a while now." I man up and stay in the kitchen. Quite a bit happened at that house before I moved out. Not jump scary, just weird.
I normally do not post on 4chan that much for the sake of my horrible grammar and mind-blowing stupidity. But I am bored and it seems like I need to tell you guys this story. It has been a while since I've even thought about it, but here I go. I guess. Remember, English is my native language, but I am really shitty with spelling, so yeah. Anyway, here we go. Okay, so it was about almost a year ago that this happened. My sister, her fiancé, his two friends, and I decided to go to Purgatory, a place in Michigan. Let's call my sister A and her fiancé B, and his friend C and second friend D. Like always, I, the main character of my story, will be Anon. So we planned this trip a month in advance and read up on the place before going. So let me catch you up on some details. Purgatory is in southern Michigan and is where Al Capone had his getaway home, which sadly burnt down by kids. The only remains are the water or power room and the boxing room. Purgatory is miles and miles of just woods and fair hunting grounds, but no one really goes hunting because of the Satanists. A group of them drive a limo, according to people who live around, and will snatch people and do human sacrifices. There are always random creepy stuff out in Purgatory, which I will tell you more about later since we kinda stumbled upon some stuff. We had to stop and get bags and supplies so then the hiking would be easier. We went on the road that day and got to Purgatory. We had to ask one of the people who lived around where the entrance to Al Capone's place was, and they happily told us and just told us to be careful and that they hoped to see us leave in peace. When she said that, I got chills all the way down my spine. We finally found the right road to turn down, but it got oddly quiet and cold as we drove closer to our destination. But we just figured it was because of the blocking of the sun from the trees. As we drove, we went around the curve called Dead Man's Curve, which supposedly 5 dead bodies were buried under. But who really knows? I mean, every place has a legend. We see a rim from a car in a tree, which we figured was a way to let people know, hey, you are here at Al Capone's place. So we pull into what seems like a person's driveway and park. We got our supplies and went hiking, and sure as hell we were right. The car rim is just a sign saying you are here. As we start going through the place, we see so much debris from the place it was not funny. Oh, I forgot to say the obvious in every nope horror story. Someone is a photographer. And like the normal, that is the main character. Which is me. My sister said, "Anon, get your camera out and take pictures." So I did. But it felt like I should not be taking pictures of this place. But I ignore the feeling like the typical dumbass person I am. Anyway, I started to take pictures, and my flash started to start on its own. Like when I turned it off, it would turn back on by itself. So it took bad pictures in the day and only a couple good ones. So I tucked the camera away into my bag, and we went on with the hiking. We started down the path and stopped as soon as I saw a piece of the house that was still standing. So we went off trail to the piece of home. The picture from the first post I made was the inside of that place. So after we graffitied inside the building with a Sharpie because we are stupid and whatever, we left. And it got dark in less than 3 minutes. So we just figured it was the trees blocking the sun as it was setting, giving the impression of nighttime. So we pull out our flashlights and got back on the trail. We looked around everywhere and ended up taking a break at the stream. After our break, we all decided to go home, but we also decided to come back next week and camp. So we started toward our cars, but then we heard singing. Well, more like chanting. And since we are complete stupid-ass people, we figured we might as well go check it out since we have weapons. So we went off the path. Into the complete darkness of the night. We went toward the chanting, and as we did, we heard the chanting get closer and closer. We ended up passing a U-shaped thing of tall bushes. Flowers, little blue flowers and some mushrooms, sat in the center around the bushes. It was weird, kind of off. We always passed 2 trees that were cut down. We kept walking and walking, but the voices sounded like they were still in the same distance, like we were never walking. As B said that, his friends 1 and 2 agreed. Me and my sister realized we just passed the U-shaped bushes. Again, it was like being in a movie, or like we were pranked and we just froze. The chanting voices stopped, so we ran for the cars, and it took us forever to find the path. As soon as we did, we kept running and running. We got to the cars and jumped in and floored it out of there.
Ugh, glad I found this because I have a really messed up one that still gets me. I'm 11 years old, early 2000s. I'm at my grandpa's house. He collects vintage children's toys and gadgets and other cool shit. I'm spending the weekend with my 12-year-old sister. My sister unfortunately passed away 2 years ago, but she was and still is my best friend. We're in Grandpa's room playing with a radio he taught us how to use. It reminded me of a Pip-Boy now that I think of it. We're flipping through local broadcasts, winding and adjusting the antenna. We find one playing this obscure crackling noise. It kind of reminded me of the crackling you get in your ear when you have a bad ear infection. It makes us exchange weird looks. People start talking. They sound terrible, and if I could describe it, I'd say they sounded hopeless. They're saying things like, "Jesus, it's done. It's not working. It's over. We're done. There's nothing we can do." They also said other unintelligible words that were broken up. My sister tells me to shut it off, but I'm fixated and frozen in fear. A different guy says, "All right, just go to sleep," as if he's ending a broadcast, and my sister shut it off. About 10 minutes later, I swear to God, it's like I woke up. It felt like it was morning, and I was just waking up. I swear I even felt the need to get ready for school. My sister experienced the same exact thing. We went downstairs and our parents were just walking through the door, like they never dropped us off hours ago. They wouldn't give us straight answers when we asked why we had to leave. We talked about it more in our teen years. I brought up the fact that it was a time lapse fucked up by the government or something extraterrestrial, jokingly. We'd both laugh, but then kind of agree it's a possibility. She got severe heat stroke during a local charity marathon in 2013, but we talked in depth about what happened.
Got a pretty spooky story from back when I was in high school involving a friend that sleepwalked or talked. Me and about 7 of my closest friends always hung out at our one friend's house while in high school. It was an older home that was in the historical downtown area of the town. It was our usual crashing spot after parties, and since his mom was chill, she would even buy us beer and whatnot. One of the guys in the group, Shane, would often sleepwalk, especially so on nights when he wasn't sober. Usually when he was sleepwalking, we would ask him questions and shit because, oh look, sleepwalking. We would usually get a kick out of the nonsensical things he would tell us. Usually. One night we were talking to him like we usually do, but the atmosphere was a little different. Instead of looking at us, the source of noise, he was staring into a dark corner of the room. Like usual, we asked him if he knew who all was in the room with him. He recounted all of our names, but then he turned back towards the corner and said, "But I don't know who you are." It kind of spooked me because he changed from being spacey or cheerful to sounding quite serious. Then the floor in the corner loudly creaked like someone was shifting their weight. Nope. So hard. Years later, from a combination of hard drug use and underlying conditions, Shane was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but that doesn't explain the sound we all heard. It saddens me to see him now since he is always so heavily medicated.
Wandered here from Fit, and I don't really believe in creep shit, but I will tell you a story that I have not been able to forget since I was a kid. For context, I should tell you that I grew up in a village in Transylvania, a province of Romania, back in the 90s. I have since moved to a different country. It was fairly underdeveloped. The communist regime that had taken control of Romania built a woodworking factory and some ugly, poorly engineered housing blocks to store the workers. These blocks were the most developed buildings in the village. The rest were just houses built by the peasants, some beautiful and charming, and some thrown together with whatever material was available. A river and a small, pothole-ridden road passed through it. Aside from that, it was surrounded by hills and forests. I was around 4 years old, and I lived with my parents and 3 sisters in one of the apartments of the concrete blocks. It was a quiet village, free from crime in general, and as is generally the case with Transylvanian villages, there was a lot of superstition about ghosts, demons, animals, and other nonsense, usually kept alive by the uneducated peasants, in part due to some belief in them, but mostly as a form of entertainment. I cannot remember what happened before or after the night in question, but I was lying in bed finding it impossible to sleep. I shared a bunk bed with one of my sisters. I was on the top bunk, and the heat in the room seemed unbearable. It was almost pitch dark, with the only light being provided by the moonlight through the window. As minutes passed in the insufferable heat, and largely inexplicable heat, since it was winter and these communist blocks cared little for insulation or heating, I began hearing a quiet noise that sounded a lot like pleading. The voice was fairly deep, and it was definitely begging, although I'm not sure for what, since I couldn't understand what the voice was saying. There was structure to the sounds. It seemed like a language, but not one I had heard before. And the tone of voice, as I said previously, was one of agonized pleading. I felt that this pleading was directed at me. I'm not sure why. I just had a feeling that whatever this voice was attempting to communicate, it was intended for me. There was no change in temperature as time passed, the same uncomfortable heat. However, the voice did become more and more desperate, at one point breaking down into pathetic sobbing, seeming to be deeply hurt, almost tortured in nature. Between agonized sobs, the voice continued to implore me for something. I was too confused to understand what was happening, and still couldn't understand the language that was being spoken. I began to hear a gentle thudding coming from a cabinet in the middle of the room, pushed against the wall that was perpendicular to the one my bed was pushed against. Gently, the door began to open. It was a slow and cautious opening, almost as if whoever or whatever was opening it was terrified of doing so and unwilling to invoke anger, although from whom I was not, and will never be quite sure. Slowly and cautiously, a trembling hand emerged from the cabinet. It was quite large, almost too large to be human, but definitely male. In the pale moonlight, I could see that it had a sickly yellow tint to it. More disturbing than that was the fact that on the hand there were inscriptions cut into the flesh. The inscriptions seemed structured. They may have meant something, but being only 4, I could not make sense of them. I also could not recognize any letters, even though I could recognize some letters at that age. It seemed to be a different language. The final and most interesting aspect of the hand was the fact that it had a large iron cuff and chain attached to it. The chain, curiously enough, was broken and hanging down, almost touching the floor. The hand had a closed fist and only came out of the cabinet to elbow length. Despite the seemingly heavy iron chain, it managed to stay perfectly straight, but still trembled in fear, and the fearful, agonized pleading continued. Around a minute had passed from the first time I heard the noises. Not knowing how to react, I turned around and faced the wall, pulled the sheets over my head, closed my eyes tight, and did my best to convince myself nothing was happening. The pleading continued, but at one point, I fell asleep. This is the first time I'm talking about this. I haven't had any sort of experience since, but this one was so vivid that I can't forget it. My most graphic and violent nightmares are always in that room. The furniture in the room usually changes, but the cabinet is always there, always closed, always silent. What do you make of this, X? I'm not a paranoid individual. I never believed in ghosts and was never susceptible to irrational thinking. This event in my life alone was so real and so vivid that I can never forget it.
I have only a few worthy stories to post here. The rest, I'm certain I was just sleep-deprived or misheard or something. Be 15 or so, working on the school paper in my mom's office space. The office space is connected to the attic via a small square door. Not just a panel, it has a handle. I'm working as normal, but I feel like something is watching me or something. I always felt like the attic was spooky. I hesitantly get up and look over at the door. It was cracked open slightly. When I looked over, it immediately shut. No way I could have seen it wrong. It was open and was then pushed or pulled shut. I freak out and work downstairs where my mom was cooking instead. I say nothing about it because she'd laugh at me most likely. Same age, around the same time, give or take a few weeks, and in the same house. I'm working downstairs because I'd been avoiding the attic or office space. I'm home alone, already uneasy enough because the house makes weird noises sometimes, or our furnace suddenly turns on with a loud humming noise. I hear distinct footsteps upstairs, like someone is walking from the office attic space to my room. I freeze and listen for a while. They stop after a minute or two. I refuse to move from the kitchen table until my mom gets home later on. A few years later, I'm getting up early for hockey practice, standing outside the garage admiring the sky. The house overlooks a heavily wooded area. Our backyard is full of trees, too. Movement catches my eye. I look down at the farther section of the woods and see something lanky and tall as hell moving through the woods. I decided I'll just show up to practice early. I get in the car and drive to the rink.
The background: B-17 8 years ago. I drove an '84 GMC pickup truck. Most cars feel like a comfortable little cocoon of safety. This thing was like a cabin in the Arctic. I still had fond memories, though. It was a summer night. I was driving home from hanging out with friends around 11:30 p.m. on a Friday. I live several miles into the middle of nowhere in the Midwest. The nearest town is like 4,000 people of poor factory workers. Anyway, to the story. I'm driving home with the windows rolled down because the night summer air feels good. I'm driving down a stretch of bumpy road. There's a spot where I always see a deer, so I slow down. Instead, no deer. Sweet. I start speeding up. I come around a sharp bend pretty fast. Slam on the brakes. What the fuck? There's a deer on the road, broken and mangled. That sucks. Sorry you had an unfortunate rendezvous with the vehicle. I drive around the deer and continue home. The road is so bad it might as well be gravel. I spin out several times. There's not enough weight in the back. I come around the bend and my shitty headlights catch the reflection of some animal eyes. Nothing out of the ordinary. Probably a possum or some shit. Except they are kinda high off the ground. Approximately 9, maybe 10 feet. It was a dark as shit, moonless night. I couldn't quite make it out. I feel kinda spooked, but I continue driving. I get to the top of my hill. This time I see another mangled deer on the side of the road. It looks super fresh. My brain starts going into overdrive, connecting dots I thought were too unreal to be there. I'm very close to home. I turn on my brights so I can see through some mist. I forget that it doesn't work. I turn the brights down. Before I do, there are those eyes again. Super high off the ground, off the right side of the road near my house. I pull into the driveway like a maniac. I roll up the windows, get the fuck out, and get inside. I bolt and lock the door. I feel slightly better in my parents' double wide. I remind myself of where my grandfather's hunting guns were. I start tiptoeing to my room. I don't want to wake up my parents. My mom is standing right there. She looks dazed, out of it. Maybe too many meds. Anon, take the dog out before you go to bed. The dog is a little dachshund. Kinda smart, but nothing that would intimidate anything. I take the flashlight, leash the dog. I want to grab a weapon, but I tell myself it will be quick and nothing will happen. I go outside. The dog wants to go to his usual spot over by the road. I'm very cautious. I shine the light at the tree line, looking around everywhere for those eyes. I don't see them anywhere across the road. The dog finishes. I turn back to the house. Those fucking eyes. They're just out of the barn light. I can't see what it is. I try to shine my light at it. I can only get a faint outline at that distance. It's tall and slim. It looks like it's hunched over, and it's even taller. Suddenly, the eyes start moving to the left, away from the light, but they keep staring at me. I stay where I am. I do not want to make sudden movements. My dog starts barking. The hair on my back is standing straight up. Shit. I pick the dog up and clamp its jaw shut. The eyes stop. They are staring right at me. I see the outline of it stand straight up. Suddenly, I see movement. It has big fucking wings. The wings spread out from being folded up. Nope. I immediately cut to the right, attempting to put the house between it and me. I still have to run down the length of the house. If it's smart, it will be right there around the corner. I decided to come around the turn at full speed. There's absolutely nothing there, nothing over by where the eyes were. I jump up on the deck. I don't even take the steps. I get into the house. I slam the door shut. I bolt it, lock it, chain it. I hear a loud crash on the deck, eyes peering through the front door curtains. I ran back into the house, into the windowless bathroom. I spent the night in the tub with a towel for a blanket.
Be walking home from school because my mom didn't pick me up. It was a 1.5 mile walk, so it wasn't too bad, and I would always put my headphones on and listen to music. I have to cross a bridge which ends in a really busy intersection. It's always a pain to cross it because of non-stop traffic, especially at 5 p.m. I wait for the light to turn green because there are no walk signs. For some reason, my music stops. I look down at it. The play button is the 2 lines that you would press to pause it, so it would still be playing, but the time wasn't moving. The light turns green and the turning cars turn. I crossed the street and looked up to see the light was red. A car coming insanely fast from the side comes and hits me. I felt the whole impact and felt my right leg and arm break. I fell to the ground and closed my eyes in pain. When I opened my eyes, I'm still waiting for the light to turn green, but I still felt in pain. I sit down there on the corner, and a car next to me rolls the window down to ask if I was all right. The music is playing again. Did I imagine it, or was it a life glitch? I saw another anon that experienced the same thing, but he was in the car when another one hit him.
I have several stories, 2 of which are the most memorable and never happened in my own home. The reason for this is, I heard my mom and someone else talking about how my father did not like going into other people's houses because of feelings he would have, which I think ended up translating to why we never had issues wherever I lived. I had a female friend that lived up the road from me about 1 mile away. I would always ride my bike to her house with my brother constantly. I'd go over and into her house all the time, go out in the woods, play with all the animals there. Every now and again, I would not want to enter the house or enter certain spaces in the house. She told me the house was haunted because of it being either a church or a school way back. This happened consistently when I would go visit her. About 5 to 7 years later, I went to visit her since I moved out of town. She was getting ready to move out of her parents' house again, and she was packing. We decided to sit on her bed and talk about old times. She's at the head of the bed and myself at the foot. We are carrying on having a good time, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a cat jump up on the bed. Instinctively, I reach over to pet the cat when it hits me. None of the animals are allowed in the house. I look over and there's nothing there. I look back over to her right as she's looking back to where I was trying to pet this black shadow that jumped on the bed. I instantly asked her if she saw that too, and she said it looked like a cat was jumping up onto the bed without me saying anything. I definitely noped after that. I was not sitting down again after that happened. There were also several times where we would be hanging out in her room and her bathroom door would end up being open when we looked back over at it. The weird thing is, we never saw it open, but we would physically close the door and make sure it was latched. One time I remember distinctly, she had a kitten in her bathroom that was really weak. Her parents let her keep it in the bathroom until it was stronger. We were making sure the door was closed so nothing could get in there by chance. That door ended up open 3 times that day before I left. The latch on the door worked well. Once you latched it, you could not open that door no matter how hard you pulled on it. The second situation I had, at a completely different house, was at one of my mom's cousins' places. Mom was getting off work really late one night and had her pick us up from school. It was my brothers and myself. She had taken us somewhere before taking us to her house. We get to her house and onto the screened-in porch. We're talking about something funny because I remember having a smile on my face. Once she opened the door, the smile left my face and I instantly said, "I am not going in there." She had this confused look but said we could stay on the porch until my mom came. I remember pacing on the porch for about 30 minutes to an hour. Finally, the mood shifted right before my mom came over, and we went inside. We were in the living room when my mom came. My mom and her aunt went to the kitchen. My mom's aunt started telling her how weird I was acting when I got to the house. There was a stairway, C-pick, and as I walked by it towards the kitchen, I got an intense sense of dread and told my mom and her aunt I was not going up there. They both assured me I didn't have to go up there. I later on found out that my aunt got suspicious because of me that the house was haunted and asked the realtor if it was. My mom told me that the realtor's face went from pleasant to OWTF when she asked her if it was haunted. The realtor fessed up that the house had claims and that there was someone who was murdered or hung in the house many years before. It still freaks the hell out of me thinking about that.
Dropped this in Nope threads before, but just got an update. Basic history. The family farm has been in the family for 100+ years. Grandpa was a dowser, spiritualist, and performed minor healing and banishings. The property is bordered by a cemetery my grandparents run and a small river. The farmhouse is thought to be haunted by 4 or more entities, but they don't ever show up around pragmatic grandma. B12 visiting for the summer. I'm not feeling good, so I try to take a nap while everyone else goes into town. I can't sleep. My phone starts ringing. I let it ring to the answering machine. I listen to the message. 10 minutes later, it rings again. Fuck this noise.jpg. I hear 2 clicks mid-ring, like someone picking up the receiver and putting it back down. I think, weird, I didn't hear anybody come back. I look out the bedroom door. I can see both phones in the kitchen and living room. No one there. I freak out a little in the dead, silent house, grab my cousin's bike and pedal around the property looking for someone. Later, I realize Ghost Bro was just helping me out. My aunt is sleeping in the same room. The 3rd day there, an alarm clock wakes her up at 4 a.m. Not unusual for farm time, but not sure why this is the first day it has gone off. 2 more alarms go off at 6 a.m. She pulls the batteries and throws them in a box. Over 3 days, 7 different alarms go off every morning. Grandma has an alarm clock collection, so it's not too odd to find some hidden in closets and behind books on shelves. It is odd that the last one had no batteries when it went off. My aunt, who is jumpy, checks into a motel. My dad is sleeping in the half-finished basement. The bed has brass tube head and footboards. He thinks he can hear whispering coming from the wall behind the bed. While listening around for the noise, he realizes it is coming from the headboard. He puts his ear to the headboard and can hear a distinct conversation. He hears children's voices interspersed with giggles. He realizes they are talking about how funny he looks with his ear glued to the bed frame. Grandpa tells us that 2 of the entities in the house are children who died in the late 1800s, and they like to play pranks. The update comes from Mom going back to take care of Grandma, who broke her hip. Aunt refused to stay in the house until it was cleansed. She tried EVP and other things to track the entities down, but they didn't take the bait. The house gets cleansed. Grandpa's old acquaintances stop by for some of his things. The lady is known for her healing hands and energy sensitivity. The first time in the house, she tells Mom there are 2 entities in the house, but not to worry. They are playful and harmless. That afternoon, Mom is in the basement. She hears something from the unfinished side. She finds an alarm clock in the box my aunt had hid in the basement going off.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.